hello and good evening and good day and good morning to each and every one of you to this wonderful last sharing of this wonderful, incredible year of 2022. Between Tanya and I, we've had loads and loads of all sorts of wonderful experiences, and there is some challenges as well. It's been a very full mixed bag, but there's been incredible growth, incredible depth of everything. And at the moment, we are in another incredible timeline with Schumann resonance spiking. For those that know Schumann resonance, and perhaps follow it, it's been spiking incredibly this last week. And it also has, it's a resonance of Earth, and it also has a new baseline. So the baseline used to be around 7, just 7 something, and now it never goes below 14. So it kind of doubled. And it used to be like it went up to 65. We thought, wow, that's a huge, huge resonance. And now it just regularly goes over 140. So it's all happening, is it not? And sometimes it spikes for hours. For me, I kind of just now feel it as this incredible love, just incredible love. It used to be much more challenging, because it kind of brings all of the things up to the surface so people can feel challenges because everything is up in your face in those times. But if you keep doing the work and keep going back to the song where it says love is the answer, that's pretty much it. It can't get any simpler than that. And also it can't get any harder, really. Is it not? Is it not a cosmic joke on Earth, because it's simple and hard at the same time? So if you're in the depths of depression and things like that, it is feeling the self-love. It's just something that is like from a Pluto. Even though Pluto is no longer considered a planet by scientists, it says, yes, I am a planet, regardless of what anyone else says. But yes, so sorry, some humor on this side. But for some people, self-love is like as if it was from some other galaxy. It's so far away from them. So it does take incredible amount of courage and persistence to continually come back to that self-love, and then to feel it, and then for it to become a habit and an automatic way that regardless of what happens in the world, regardless of what happens in your reality, you always then come back to that self-love, rather than beating yourself up, rather than being critical to yourself or any of all those or all of those sorts of things. So yes, we celebrate at the end of the year, we celebrate all these new insights, all these new levels that we are now living in. For each one of us has gone to in relationship to self, because it's not a competition and it's not a comparison with anybody else, but in relationship to self. Each one of us has gone into new depths and new levels of experience, of mastery, of all sorts of different feelings. And then so we can continue, we can look towards 2023 as to what is the new year going to bring. So it's quite exciting. Tanya, over to you. Is it quite exciting for you as well?
Yes, there are so many colors to it. When I close my eyes, I just see this. It's like this, the spectrum of colors that you see through a crystal. So that's what I see. Each time I close my eyes, I just see that spectrum of colors swirling around. It's incredible. And it's not like all the time when I used to close my eyes, I used to see stuff, it's just, but now, especially in this last week, it's been so intense. Each time I close my eyes, I just see that swirling spectrum of colors through crystalline light. And one of the most how can I say, humoristic cosmic jokes is that this time being, one could say intense. It all depends what each one considers intense to be, or how each one has that in their own perception. So this time is intense no matter where we are at in our conscious evolution, but the meaning of intense is completely different for each one. And what do I mean? So if we are in that space of self-love and have finally decided to really allow it completely and to live in it 100% of the time, if we are in that, what we're looking at and what we're perceiving and seeing as intense is that more than ever and more and more and more, the rate of instant manifestation, it has, I don't know, quadrupled, quintupled, I don't know how you say the others from there on. Whatever, it's incredible. But and so if you're in that space of profound love, self-love is love, full stop. I mean, if you're in that love with you and for you, you're in that love for everything and anything, in the sense that there is absolute compassion, there is no judgment, and therefore you just look around, and each time you see humanity, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the minerals, everything, it's just a flow of love here for Earth, and of course the rest of the universe, whatever. But so if you're in that, what you manifest is a consequence of that, because we here on Earth, we still go on experiencing cause and effect, because that's the whole thing about Earth. That's what's unique about it, is being able to experience cause and effect in a way that we can actually physically see it and taste it and know it and feel it and all of that. So you experience the causes of the effect of love that you are bathing in 100% of the time. Now, if you're not, so that's a whole different story. So the rate of manifestation remains fast, remains lightning speed anyway, but what you're manifesting is precisely where you are at in your conscious awareness. This is not a curse. This is a gift, because it gives each one the opportunity to realize the effect of the cause that they are much faster. And so you don't linger on in whatever it is that eventually you don't want or like or want. These words are so limited. Eventually you have felt you no longer would like to be experiencing in your life. That's what I mean by want. So it becomes much faster, of course, more painful in the moment. So more vivid, and in that sense, more intense. But that is what allows more awakening. That is what allows more evolution in terms of conscious awareness. That is what allows more realization. That is what allows the shift to happen at a grander scale. So it's not like, oh my God, now this is, it's all so fast, and now what am I gonna do? My life is getting worse and worse. Imagine if you're not in that space of complete love. Well, yeah, great, embrace that, because that's your opportunity to see live and full color, HD quality, top maximum quality, what needs to change? And now with this in mind, and having said this, what I was going to say initially was that now, more than ever, it is essential that each and every one, if you are wanting or choosing to be in that communion with the wholeness of who you are, to embody your essence here on earth, you have to be fully honest and coherent. So there's no more space for mucking around in saying yes when you want to say no, no matter who it is that you're having to say no to. Because, and this is the time of the year where that happens a lot. And that's why it's coming up that I'm mentioning it, you know, during these kind of festive seasons, people run into a lot of this. They many times don't feel like going to a certain family or social gathering or whatever, or don't feel like doing this or that in a certain way, but find themselves doing it just because it is acceptable within the community they live, or within their family, or with their loved ones, or with the ones that they usually live with. And if they fail to, this is an idea, obviously, that if they fail to consent, there will be consequences. Dear ones, there are much worse consequences if one fails to follow the truth for ourselves than if you fail to consent to something you don't partake in, something you don't believe in, something you don't want to do. So there are loving ways of saying no, respectful ways. And if we can be fully honest 100% of the time from a loving space within, without being hurtful, without being spiteful, no, from a space of self-respect, if you can share how you feel about something with whoever it is you feel like saying no to, that whatever you're saying is received in a completely different way. You have no idea how a person is going to react because you've never tried. So just go ahead and allow yourself, and this is an invitation for everyone, to celebrate. Allow yourself to celebrate you, your integrity with you, with what you feel are your boundaries energetically, with what you feel is truly loving and kind for you, because that's where it starts and that's where it ends. Your reality, our reality, my reality, everyone's reality is a direct consequence of this 100% of the time. And one other essential thing is that no matter where we're at in our conscious awareness, we always have to choose. All the time, we are placed before options, and we have to keep on choosing. Which option am I going to take? Which option is the most loving? That is, it makes it so simple, isn't it? Like, it's a no-brainer. If you go to which option feels, you feel it in your heart, which option feels the most loving, take that one. There, nothing to it. The mind who would like to control this or that says, oh no, that's not a good option for this or that, but you feel it in your heart. You feel that warmth, you feel that kindness, you feel that gentleness. Go for it. That's the option. Choose it all the time. And in no time, because manifestation, as I was sharing, is so instant, even in regards to changing the way the mind serves, in no time, mind will be serving what you have chosen. And that's the whole thing. Mind is not the enemy. It is the servant. And it makes this experience on earth possible. Over to you, beloved.
Thank you very
Alexis.
much. And it was just such beautiful explanation, because this for me was also, I mean, for everyone, I'd say it's huge topic.
Huge.
These boundaries and how to say no, and you know, like how to be okay with that. And also how much courage it initially takes, because like, for example, you know, like this, when you're working in a society, working as in like just living in a society, you know, there's so much where you actually keep suppressing, and you have to keep, and the way the society does work, for example, if you go to job, if you go to all of these kind of things that are organized and involve a lot of other people, to creative work, to anything, it has a lot to do with just following some kind of rules and expectations that others have placed on. And also a lot of the times those expectations do have that feel of life and death. And also sometimes they, you know, like they do carry consequences, in a sense that, you know, perhaps if you do say no, you may not be invited to another thing, or you may, but every time, this is the whole journey with being with the soul, or traveling with the soul, is because it is whole. And that's what you learn. That's what I've learned in this, that even when some door closes, there are many other doors always open. And also you all also are ready, you are mature, and you are emotionally ready for that next step, for that change. Because when you actually are trying to make those kind of changes just from the mind alone, that the big difference is that very often you're following someone else's script, you're following someone else's ideas about certain things, and then you also don't have anything to back those things up. You're not emotionally in that space. So when you as a soul, meaning that you carry that presence and you make decisions with that presence and with that self-love, with that love, like you, Tanya, said, it's just love. It's so holistic, it's so organic, it is so all-encompassing that all of your needs are met in that moment and along the way, and with those kind of choices. And you also are ready, so you're ready to leave one place and you're ready to move into another place. So that is the most amazing, one of those really cool things that I found out, because before that, my changes were really quite traumatic in a way, because you know, like you experience that trauma and you experience fear, and that's why change is such a huge big deal for people. And they instead find safety in habits, even if those habits are actually, you know, very and damaging to them. Like, you know, people, for example, that experience addictions and all sorts of things, and this kind of behavior that you can see they're self-harming, but they do it because they feel safety in them. So it's not they don't do it because they are bad, but it's just safe for them. And change is so hard because it's trying to come from the mind when one is not ready. So when you are ready in this soul way, in an integrated way, everything is already set up, and that's why it's that incredible flow. It is joy. So you know, like this follow when you're making this kind of all sorts of choices, which like Tanya, you've so beautifully described, all of these choices is really just about following your joy, and it does become that. And when you are working in a soul way, like you said, you can then be kind when you set your boundaries. But it is a huge thing, and I made a lot of mistakes, and sometimes on along the way I wasn't kind because I just didn't know how to be kind, and I wasn't kind to me, I wasn't kind to others. And then it really comes that time when everything that you do and that happens again is that love where you forgive. That's where the self-forgiveness and the compassion, and you just move on, you know, because And very often there was a period in my life when I think I mentioned in one of the our episodes before, where I just felt like I had to keep apologizing to people. Yes. And it's just simply because I just didn't know how to say no, and in a kind way. So all of it is a journey, and it's a learning process, and then you come to a humor. But wherever you are and whatever you do and whatever you've done, you need to be able to go over that, like to move through that. So there is nothing in a way that there is nothing you've ever done, anybody has done, even though some people have done some quite difficult things, but there is everything that that you can move through to the next experience and the next experience and the next experience, and the choices that we've made along the way. And then when we're learning all these things, like setting the boundaries, saying no, saying yes. Saying yes is another thing that is quite important as well, because it's very important to what you say yes to, because it's not which choice you say yes to. So do you say yes to the joy? Does something that you choose bring you joy? But again, it's a huge thing to work through, because there's we are taught so much that all the choices, you have to suffer, and it's such hard work to anything, and any joy that you get at the end of, maybe one day you'll be rewarded for all the hard work and all the discipline and all that you're giving up in order to sort of like achieve this or whatever. But we're dancing with soul as a soul. It's all of this kind of falls off, because the choices that you make are so holistic and organic and good for you, and you're ready for them, and they're good for other people, and for other people it's really good whether you say yes or no to them. Both are good, because if you're authentic and real in their relationship, this is what actually people don't often experience, because they experience the fakeness. Like, even for example, you go to the shop, people have to fake being nice, and then you very rarely can maybe experience someone who is really nice and kind. You can tell, and you can tell the difference. So that's what we are trying to, and that's what we are being now, real kind and real nice, that comes from a very different space. It comes from the depths of you, from your own essence, this joy, this kindness. It doesn't come from, I have to pretend to be nice and I have to suppress. That's a very mind. You're still then in your mind, if that's how you're working. So again, it's one of those things where things look very similar, because when the mind is given the job of the soul, like this job of being the conductor and the boss of your life, then it tries to copy what it knows the soul does, because it knows the soul's ways, because it is also part of the soul, like everything else. But its copy is just a mimic. It looks very similar, but when you become real, you can very quickly tell the difference, what is real and what is pretend, just trying to mimic, the real thing. And so there are so many incredible depths that you get to experience and you get to know, and that's why it's never boring to live a soul-filled life, and again, like you said, Tanya, all of these are just words, but they're words we have to use. But it's like everyone, we're inviting everyone to feel these things for yourself. Feel them for yourself, feel these truths for yourself. And then when you come to those kind of decisions, because there are some huge forks in the road that you come to, and you make a choice. Do you make the old choice as you've always done it, or do you start choosing to follow your joy? And then you will be tested. You are tested. You test yourself, really. It's not like, there's some kind of God out there that tests you, but you test yourself in a sense that you know, like you will be asked to have courage, because maybe someone will leave your life, maybe someone will be upset by your choices, maybe someone won't speak with you again because they want to play their continual games. And when you start separating in that way from people that you've been in cahoots with, because you know, when you are friends with people and when you are in a family unions where you play the same game of codependency or whatever, you are kind of like there are unwritten rules, and also there are everybody knows and everybody adheres to. So when you make those kind of changes, it can feel, and you make different choices, you step out of that congruent group, step out of that group dynamics, and it feels like you are betraying them, and other people can feel betrayed by you because you all of a sudden now, you know, acting in a different way or doing different things. And so there are so many, I'm just mentioning this just to let everyone you know or point out that you've experienced already. There are so many nuances to everything, to every choice. And this is really many like you said, after effects or alongside effects or experiences. And this is really when you start to, at one point, you start to really appreciate being human in this incredible way, because you realize that all these emotions and feelings and experiences, this is the gold of existence. This is the gold to the soul self. This is why a human part was imagined and created and you know, dreamed of and then created, because it's like this fine musical instrument upon which the energy of the soul plays is different tunes, and then you vibrate and you play this different music, your music, and then the song of the soul is played through you. That would be like a poetic way to kind of say it. But you really, I said at one point, started feeling myself in this way, that I am this kind of, as a human self, this human self, I mean, starts feeling like this instrument upon which the soul plays all these different songs and experiences. And then my feelings are all these vibrations and tones and all the different parts that belong in a song. And then I create this incredible orchestra music that plays back to the soul. So it's this incredible give and take, and the music becomes more and more fine and subtle. And that I'm meaning like these feelings and senses become so incredibly deep and subtle. So this so become like every experience, is even the most tiniest experience, comes with so many nuances and feelings and meanings and these new discoveries and new aha moments, that it is like this kind of orgasmic orchestra music experience, you know, that it and the life of this kind of life is really, all you can say is divine, you know. And even if it is some kind of not such such finely scented feelings and emotions that come, they too are part of this music, they're too a part of this orchestra. And then when you can then also dance with others in this way, then it really becomes very, very magical. And for me, this year has been so much about this, because in the past, you know, like being so sensitive to things, it's been incredibly painful living alongside the mass consciousness. And this year, I've really experienced huge, it's been last few years, but this year there's just been this change over, where now I actually go and enjoy the music that other people are, and the dancing that we do together, and just seeing and feeling. And somehow, yeah, the inside, you know, it's not so caustic, this mass consciousness. So whether that is because all the resonances are changing, we've been changing them everything has changed. Like in this last month or two, there's been huge changes that I can't even begin to describe. And like you said, Tanya, yes, the manifestation is instant. Now it really is paying off. What, it's like those children that have a tricycle, they have those supporting little wheels on their bike. Those have been taken away, and now we're really, we have to bike. And so for people that have perhaps, like you said, procrastinated before, it's much easier now to integrate and transform. So it's not like you're losing or you've lost anything, but yes, just do it. It's like, what else, can we say? Just no more procrastinate, because then it really does get
then
painful.
it really hurts.
Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah.
But otherwise the pain is gone. If you've done
instantly,
the work,
instantly,
it's gone. Yeah, and there's that suffering bit is gone, and the ease and grace, even with mass consciousness, is here. All of these things are now accessible. They are real. They work. It's quite incredible. Like, I can't, and so that's why I'm sort of like, oh my gosh, like what else is gonna, what else are we what else are we gonna experience, so
I was there are several. It's so beautiful the way you were sharing this whole context, and with the orchestra. It's interesting. The last Sunday I went to Lisbon to watch the Lisbon Film Orchestra.
Oh wow.
And so that's a live orchestra on stage, and they perform songs from films, some with voice, others just the orchestra playing. And I went there because my daughter's birthday was on Monday, and so she wanted to go, and I said, okay, so let's just all go and do that and have fun. And I was sitting there right in front of them, and I was having this so very human and so very cosmic experience at the same time, because basically that was a metaphor of what I experience, what we experience, and what we can experience. So there's all of these movies, each movie has its tune, and there are some movies that are dramatic, some movies, but if you're in that space of grace, you're listening to the orchestra, you're not listening to any of the distractions going on with the drama and etc. It's exquisite. It's exquisite. Every single tune that was performed on that stage was magnificent. I mean, the way all of those different instruments come together and just create something absolutely magical. And it doesn't matter whether the inspiration was a drama or a comedy or a love story or whatever. It's magnificent all the time. So that's how I feel. And I'm sure that's when you were describing that, this was what I was perceiving. So probably this is what you feel too. It's like we're sitting down, with all of the humans watching, and we are in that state of grace where we can appreciate everything and hear the orchestra, hear the music, not the distractions, not what seems to be bad, not the destruction. No, we're just listening to the music, and in doing so, getting more and more enraptured in joyful grace and gratitude. Because all the time I was sitting there, oh gosh, I felt so much gratitude that I could be sitting there with a full house. So thousands of people in the same space, and that I could have a smile on my face all the time and not feel whatever emotions that the whole thing was bringing up emotions for everyone, I'm sure. And some were feeling joy, and others were feeling sadness, and others were feeling grief, and others were feeling anger and whatever. But for me, all of that was music. So once we are in that state of grace, it just becomes like that all the time. And so we become that orchestra as well. So wherever you go, whoever you are with, well, yeah, sometimes you're a bit too intense for certain people because you're a whole living orchestra. I mean, that's intense. But on the other hand, you're safe. You're a safe space to be with. Why? Because you're honest, transparent, and true 100% of the time. So even if people have never met you before, they feel this transparency, and they know that with you, they're fine, because you're not going to pretend. You're not going to say no when you want to say yes, and yes when you want to say no. You're not going to just be nice for convenience. And you're not also going to be unkind. You're not going to be judging them, because you are perceiving from that compassionate viewpoint that sees the orchestra on the stage magically performing all of the right instruments depending on what the vibration of the creator of that is. So this other person or the other people you're with are also an orchestra. But many times the sound is very dim because they aren't hearing it yet inside of themselves, because the wholeness hasn't yet been celebrated completely. And when I mean that, I mean all of the darkness, all of the light, and everything in between has not fully been integrated. And therefore, of course, there are instruments that are still needing fine-tuning. There are some violins that are playing quite strange sounds that aren't very nice to hear. Yeah, and there are, these kinds of scratchy noises, fine-tuning the chords, fine-tuning the beats.
And the habits are like broken record that keeps jumping
Yes.
to the same and repeating
Yes,
the same.
Exactly, which is not very nice either to listen to. So that's why, that's why when people are avoiding their wholeness, avoiding embracing all of that which is being judged, they find it hard to be in silence. Because, it is hard to be in silence and then hear all of these scratchy noises and that record jumping again onto the same track. And of course, it's uncomfortable. But if we allow ourselves to be with that, with all of that scratching and fine tuning, then the instruments will eventually be ready to play perfectly in tune in a magnificent orchestra. But like the violin's chords don't get tuned by themselves. The player has to tune them, and the cello and all of the other string instruments, and the ones that you blow in, and the ones that you beat on, and the ones that the piano and all of the other keyboard instruments. The player has to do the tuning. The player has to fix anything that eventually is creating distortion. Fix in the sense that remove or pluck out extra dust, to lubricate, you know, put in oil, whatever. It depends on what kind of instrument we're talking about. But the point is, we have all of them inside of ourselves. And I don't know, probably many of you have been to an orchestra. Geez, there's a lot of instruments on that stage. So, and you are the one who tunes every single one of them.
And the thing is that as you are doing as a soul, you absolutely have those abilities to do,
exactly,
you know?
exactly.
And you absolutely have the ear to hear when there are impurities or when things are out of tune. So you can actually, it all comes, that's that organic thing, that it comes as a wholeness. It doesn't come as bits and pieces.
No. So at a moment, like when one of those stickiest aspects is approaching, it's just that piece. So yeah, and in that moment, you're only with that instrument. Stay, don't go anywhere. Now stay and breathe. Just like you were sharing, you have to walk through it, not around it, not over it or below it, through it. That's the only way through, because there's only you with you. So if you're walking around you, then whatever is there remains there. It remains there with the same kind of energy, the same frequency, the same qualities. Then for it to be transmuted, you come with your conscious awareness. You stay there with your conscious awareness, which in other words could be your soul, could be said as your soul, your essence, or whatever you want to believe in. I mean, here we're not even affiliated to any kind of belief system, whatever makes sense. So you bring in your conscious awareness to that space. It will for sure shift. It has to, because there are different, your conscious awareness has a certain frequency, and that aspect has a different frequency. And it is part of the natural laws of evolution that that frequency that is higher in terms of stronger, it's always stronger. The higher frequency is always stronger. There is no way around that. It will gently and surely transmute that other frequency into that one. So, but then the great thing is that from that combination, as the other lower frequency is transmuted into a higher frequency, you get a new combination that wasn't there before. So it's not like that higher frequency comes in and transforms that into the same. No, not at all. That's the whole purpose of this 3D experience, that we went through all of those lower frequencies, and that now by combining them with our expanded consciousness, we get something totally new. So for each aspect, each trauma, each all of that, I mean disintegrated aspect, because aspects is what we use all the time to communicate with the world. But each disintegrated part, whatever, has a special new quality to it that you can only listen to, taste, feel when it's combined with your expanded consciousness. And so what happens is we all gain, each one of us, a whole new set of instruments that didn't exist before. And by allowing that for ourselves, of course, we have everything to gain. We're the first ones to gain. I mean, we're immersed in that. Of course, the whole of existence benefits from that, because there's this host of new instruments, and so we can call them instruments of consciousness available. And once an instrument of consciousness is created, and it's created through that combination and creates something new, it remains available to be replicated in a certain way. It means that it can then be used in an expanded way, not only for you, but for existence as a whole. Because we're not islands. We are sovereign, yes. Yes, we are sovereign. Yes, we are one in our own integrity, but we are also the ocean at the same time. We are also the ocean of consciousness, the ocean of existence. And therefore, every gain we gain individually, the whole orchestra, the whole ocean, the whole of existence gains at the same time. There isn't even a separation like you gain first and then the rest gains afterwards. No, it's instant. We gain, everyone gains. And so therefore, again, repeating, because repetition sometimes is important,
Yes.
be authentic. Everyone gains. Everyone gains. And it's not this kind of authenticity that, you know, so now this thing about authentic is a very common word used also in business kind of contexts, in be successful, be authentic, whatever. And there are different levels of understanding about authentic. And what I mean about authentic here is 100% in love. From the inside out,
the inside.
For you.
Yeah, and real. And this for me it's an experience. Again, you can't describe it really. So you know when you're real, and when you start first to experience it, it feels so incredibly divine. It feels so good, and it feels it's like a huge relief. A relief of lifetimes, because you kind of fall into yourself, and it's such incredible feeling of freedom to be yourself, you know, after being caught with all, like you said, all those aspects, and thinking that you were you know, that those were the real you, all the different identities and everything,
and you were a prisoner.
A prisoner, yeah. And we were slaves to this, because as long as you are not a master of all of these things, of your inner world, you are pretty much a slave of whatever, whether it is your own aspects, your own inner aspects, or whether other people, you know, and whether fashions, whatever is fashion, you know, all of these things, you're a slave. And the thing is that the good thing is when you are real, it's not nice, you know, it's not about being nice, it's about being real. But I find that as I journey through, I have become, like you mentioned, a much nicer person. Firstly, I'm real, but also, like, after, you know, it's kind of like you go through the school, all different kind of schools, and then when you're individualizing and saying yes and no to the more real things that are more you, that becomes a focus, and then that comes out. Once you master that, for me, then it went out, and then it's not, now I find myself much more cool with all of the things that I don't really need to that much even say yes or no in relationship to others, because I'm very so cool about everything.
It's natural,
you know. Yeah. And if they say, oh, let's go there, I'm like, okay, you know, because I don't have to, like, and because wherever we go, I have the best time wherever I am. Like, so it's not because, and that's, I know how to say yes, I know how to say no. So I've mastered that. And I still, at the core, we still continually do that, because we choose the potentials and all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I'm much more now, again, much more easygoing, flexible with people, because I know that everything will work out. You know, it's not like I have to, if I do that, then that, if I do that, there's no need for me to manipulate with my mind, or think or ponder about things with my mind, because whatever just feels good, yeah, let's go there. And then that's where we go, and it all works out. You know, so in this way, it's very different stages, and and it's so important also to then actually recognize in others which stage they're actually at. So are they at, for example, in that stage where for them the priority is to learn to say yes and no and set boundaries, because they will be quite different acting in that area then when you're already, because someone could say, oh, you're just following everyone else. Once you're a master, because you're so cool and flowy and whatever, that people can say, oh, you're just following anyone else, but you're not really. You're still following your joy. It's just that you're doing it in such a flowy and easygoing way. And the whole world is your oyster. The whole world is your playground. So for me, whether someone says, oh, let's go to this walk, or let's go to that walk, or let's go to this dance or that dance, so it really matters not, because wherever I go, I'm a soul. Wherever I go there, I'm in my soul. I go there, I'm in my soul. I'm in my energy.
And you can't manifest anything that is not like you.
Yeah. So it's kind of almost like you become, again, it's almost like you go backwards, but you don't, because again, you are then real and authentic. You are easygoing and all of these things. But again, before it was mimicking these states of being, but now you are real in these states of being. So in this way, you become a much more really easier person to be around in this way, because everything's kind of cool. But for me, I just like to flow like that, because then I don't have, what it used to be conflict. But I must say, like, through this growth period, there was a time when there was a lot of conflict during that time, when I was learning to say no and finding ways to really say. So wherever you are, you really are at that real place where you're supposed to be. So don't worry that whatever's happening for you, it's good, it's the right place, and then it naturally flow out, like you naturally come, because you become such a so self-aware that okay, I'm out of this class now. One day I wake up and I realize, oh, I'm out of this class now, cool. So you kind of just become aware of all these things and what you've learned, because this is the whole point of being a creator, point of being a master, is that you are a master of all these things in your life. But it's, again, a very different state than when the mind was trying to control. So there is control of the mind is mimicking the mastery as a soul. It can kind of look, to an unawakened person, it can kind of look a little bit similar, but it's a very, very different state of being, because as a master, you really, there's no need to control. Control is kind of like a real pointless word. Like there's no need to use it. And at the same time, meaning to be a master means that you are above any condition within yourself. So you're not a slave to any emotion, you're not a slave to any feeling, you're not a slave to any happening, because you're the chooser, you're the decider, you manage your own inner world because of a lot of practice, because like you said, Tanya, enormous amount of practice. Like we're constantly working on this. So I find myself, there's 24 hours I'm working on this, on how to do this, how to do that. Okay, this, some fear comes. Okay, so how do I master this? How do I relate to that? There's constant work on the inside, but it's not a work that is similar to
it's not a chore.
It's not a chore. It's exciting.
It's living. Yeah. It's living, basically.
And experimenting and being that dynamic being that we really are. So the beings that we really are, again, it's that there's this depth and stillness of yourself, of myself. And at the same time, there's this incredible dynamism it's kind of like when when you go to the forest, you know, in the forest, if you really think about it, nothing is still ever. There's all the everything flying, all these little creatures, from the microbes that you need, you know, that you don't even see. It's all moving and growing and flowing. Even like if you just look at the surface elements, like if you look at the breeze and the wind and the sun moving and the planet, you know, our planet goes through space 24, what is it, 4 kilometers per second. That's the speed of planet just around the sun. What about the whole solar system in the Milky, you know, there's this continual movement of life. And that's the reflection of who we are as entities, as beings, this incredible continual movement, and yet at the same time this incredible peace and silence and stillness. You know, because like even if you go into space, just outside of you know, like the atmosphere, there's this quietness, you know, because space itself would be incredibly noisy if there was material between the planets through which the noise, the sound could travel, but there isn't. That's why it's so quiet. But the space itself, it's music, it's sounds, it's so many so much movement, and yet it is just this like in the forest, there's the sounds of birds and all these creatures singing, and yet you feel this incredible peace. So how can that be when there's so much life and movement and dynamic movement, and yet there's this incredible peace and timelessness? And these are those parts again that we can appreciate ourselves, you know, like sometimes I feel like I do use all these mystical words because once you really have presence of soul, you cannot but not use mystical words, because these are the real realities of being soulful, soul-filled being on this earth or anywhere, and they are quite different to what, you know, the everyday life of a human is. And so you go into these areas where really you can just use music, you know, and analogies and poetry, and all of the mystics of the old were using analogies because you can't describe, and you can only experience and feel. So, you know, the questions that, what kind of questions do you ask yourself daily? Do you ask yourself, you know, I mentioned to someone just today, do you ask yourself, as a timeless being, you know, if you're not experiencing and making choices out of your love and joy, is that how you want to spend eternity? Because your eternity is now. So if you bring those kind of big feelings and big images that the soul brings, that overview, and you actually allow it to inject itself into your everyday life, then it kind of ejects you out of inertia, or out of just doing the same old song, or doing the same old habits. You know, it kind of gives you that oomph when you realize that feeling, wow, you know, I am eternal. I actually am eternal. Do I really want to feel miserable for eternity? And if not, then make different kind of choices than what you need to actually do. You know, and what you need to do is really simple. All of the tools are at your fingertips. You know, it's that breathing, is choosing love, is all of those kind of things that we talk about over and over, but no one again can do it for you. And now it hurts if you're not, because of that immediacy of you know, it's kind of like we were protected. We were like given cotton wool around each one of us, because we were creators. Well, still majority of humanity is creators in learning how to be creators. Because if if we were kind of, before you learn how to handle yourself, meaning how to manage your creatorship, how to be a master, you can't really be released in a cosmic community, because you would do damage. You know, like look at what happens on earth. People create wars, and each person has to learn. That's why each person has, before they graduate, so to speak, out of the earthly realm, graduation meaning you ascend, it is because you've learned how to handle who you are as a being, how to handle your creatorship, how to be a master of all of these different abilities that you have, and you know, how to make peace with yourself, how to resolve opposite things within yourself, so that you don't go out there and create war in cosmos, so to speak, you know. And so we will see, as we are now moving in a different frequencies and everything, and we are now, many of us are now staying and also living this peace. We will now, it's coming, that we will become aware much more of the cosmic realities and other beings that will become part of our daily life. And it's not that someone's gonna come with some kind of spaceship and land. That's the old version, and you know, it's good for movies and entertainment, and that's fine. But it's just that, like what we do when we channel others, for example, you know, we can channel Yeshua, and we can channel Mary Magdalene or Saint Germain, whomever, and it's these kind of beings that we can become aware of them. And it is true that these beings are also part, you know, like as a channeler, you create a part of yourself that interacts with that being. And so you can say, like you said before, it's the facet or aspect. But it is also true that other entities exist. That's the both are true. So, you know, you can say, okay, yes, I am Christ, but there is also a being that is Yeshua, you know, so that both, so he will invoke the feeling of Christhood in you, but there is also a being that is Yeshua, and that is Mary Magdalene, and you know, that is Tanya. There is a being that is Tanya, you know, in each one that is participating. So, and there are these huge, grand realities that are all around us that we've been close to. And you've spoken about all these colors and everything. Like, let's say, even just if we look at from scientific point of view, if you look at the light spectrum, you know, the spectrum of light, a human eye can only see a very tiny sliver of what light represents. So basically, we're just opening ourselves up to see like a wider spectrum of that light. And within that wider spectrum, there is a lot there, you know, a lot of other beings, a lot of worlds, the dimensions, all sorts. But one needs to be a master to be able to be safe in that, so to speak, so that you can interact with all these beings in a peaceful, in a wonderful, beautiful, loving way, and not I mean, they're not it's not that someone closes you off kind of thing. It's just that you're not able to even perceive them unless you reach and again, these are just words, unless you reach a certain level of resonance, openness within you. Yeah. And that means peace and inner love, self-love, and inner peace and forgiveness and compassion and whatever. You don't have access to these worlds. And that's why, again, when people talk about the new earth is here, but are you able to perceive it? If you've done the work that we talk about, then you are able to perceive it, and you are able to allow this new earth to flow through you into this reality and share it with others. But if you haven't done the work, then you're just blind to it, oblivious to it. And so in many ways, like for all of those that have been involved with all these helping professions and, you know, trying to help others, and how do you lift others up in this way, it has to now it's now a much, you know, and people always saying, oh, the whole humanity is ascending. And, you know, every year, if you've been around in the spiritual community for the last 20, 30 years, every year, oh, it's a Lion's Gate. humanity is ascending, you know, or 8-8, humanity is ascending. And some people keep writing that year after year. But the thing is that it's not that humanity is ascending. It is that individuals that have done the work, you know, because that then all of a sudden become aware of, and of course, the more people that have done the work, then the energy changes, and it's easier, and the templates are there, like you so beautifully described. But at the same time, it is only fair too, like when you look at it, that each person has to do the work, you know, and so until they do it,
it couldn't be any other way. Really.
No. I mean, it's like very simple example. If you, let's say, if you go skiing, I mean, unless you learn to ski, you're not safe to put on top of some steep hill and just say, oh God, just go down, because you'll break all your legs. you know you know, and if it's a team group skiing hold hands thing, you're going to endanger everyone else as well, if you don't know how to ski, you know. So it's kind of the same. And so, you know, if anyone has any still doubts, if there are things that hurt in your life, just keep saying, no, it's time that I go through them, you know, whatever needs to be done. Because as you know, like when those kind of choices are made, all of the tools and all of the things and all the information and the right people become available, and it comes into your life. So it's all very beautifully orchestrated. So today we talk about orchestra.
Today we're in that. I loved your analogy of the forest, though. That was so perfect. And, you know, what I find around that analogy is that, interestingly enough, that the peace, that stillness within, it keeps on growing, but exponentially, the more that stillness grows, as if it can grow. I don't even know how to explain it, because it's complete peace and stillness, and yet it expands. But exponentially, as it expands, so does the movement. So does the creativity, the manifestation. It's like, because that landscape of peaceful stillness becomes more tangible, I would say, in the physicality, that's what expands. That's what I sense expands, is that it becomes more and more physical, real for us as physical beings, as we perceive in the physicality, that creates the landscape for anything and everything to just start popping up in terms of capacities to create, to move life, to move energy, So energy becomes much more responsive. And what I find is that the more this is embodied in a very personal level, my essence, Aeelah is the name, the vibration, is very creative. And when I say creative, I mean, it's like sometimes these invitations pop up that I never, ever imagined. And then a few days later, I find myself doing that thing or creating that thing. So it's about being in life fully and being able to create all of the things that I wasn't able to create because of my prior state of consciousness. So it's like, it's this, yes, now we get to do this, and then we get to do that, and oh my God, isn't that wonderful? It's like my, you know, I find this spirit of me rejoicing constantly in finally being able to set in motion in the physical reality things that had been waiting to happen. And in saying this, one important thing is to stay open to anything. Or so, yeah, you've never thought about it before. It comes, go ahead, say yes, discover it. And it just unfolds in brilliant ways that you've never imagined before and couldn't. And another thing is, so stay open, stay receptive, obviously, because you will need the receptivity to be flowing completely, so that the right in terms of, for that manifestation, people, situations, material support, whatever comes your way. So stay open and receptive, and don't attach, because in the same way that something is created and developed for now, it can happen that the invitation comes, okay, now let's let go of that and let's go on to something new. So don't attach. But what I find, and interestingly enough, I found with my whole lifetime, even when I wasn't aware, I've got this very strong entrepreneurial streak. So that is in my DNA, but not only, probably in my also in my soul construct. And I found the most beautiful thing happens. That is, I create and I manage to actually make things happen. So it's not like I have ideas and then I don't materialize them. I do. And then I offer them to someone else when the time comes for me to move on to something new. So what you've created, it's never lost. Someone will be right there waiting to receive it, and will receive it with so much gratitude, and will change it. Will make it something different, something new, but you've already offered over 50% of the work with what you created. So it's never lost. It's always expanded and transformed. There's no point remaining attached to anything whatsoever, because we are not fixed, neither in form or out of form. We are not fixed beings. And with this, I'd like to add also that many times I come across people that are doing the work, yes, but fail to understand that it's time to move. So yeah, doing the work, lying down and breathing, perceiving, eventually integrating, but not, because integration, for it to be full, you do perceive the aspects, whatever it is, and so on, and you embrace and you come into compassion, all of that stuff. But then if you don't live it, it's not integrated. That's it. So I really would like to send out this invitation to stop sitting on the couch and lying on the bed and face that fear. Because if you are continuing there but feel an urge to live, but just always, each time you try and go out and do something new in your life and try and live, there's this fear that comes up, and then you retract, and this kind of game back and forth. Face it, walk through it, go ahead and follow whatever the invitation is that is coming from deep within, because without living it, you do not integrate. Yes, a great part can be sitting in the couch or lying in bed, but then in order to live the new earth, you have to do something about it. It's not just sitting there waiting for everything to fall in your lap. That's not how energy works.
And also it creates that flow of abundance,
Exactly.
a lot of
Otherwise
people,
it's inertia.
yes, That's right. Yeah. And a lot of the people are under that impression that's, because it is allowing the abundance. It is allowing it's that
Yes.
feeling of abundance, but it has to do with, because we are physical, we need to create physical channels through which, let's say,
Yes.
abundance is all sorts, abundance of sun, abundance
Everything.
of warmth. But if we're talking about, let's say, material things, we
Yeah.
need to create those physical channels through which the abundance can then flow, whether it's investments, whether it's all of
Whatever.
those, whatever it is, exactly. And people are kind of not really really versed in that very well, because they sort of talk about, and like you said, it is also it's kind of almost like a self-challenge, I find, like you said, because if everything just came into the lap, let's say, all of a sudden you dig into your garden and all of a sudden you find a
You
whole
find
box with the
a whole box of money.
money or
Yeah.
something, but because that's not the point of the soul. The soul wants to experience life in all its range. And so, like you said, if people just, for example, sit at home and don't go over those kind of self-worth issues and all of those kind of things, then it's really pointless to keep staying,
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
soul point of
Exactly.
view.
Exactly. It's
So
just, it's useless.
yeah,
Then
that's
just
right.
disincarnate and come
That's
back
right.
again. It's
Yeah,
pointless.
because the thing is, it is a whole point is about living, being fully immersed in life. And that can be in all sorts of things. And because you've gone through those kind of big baptisms of fire, meaning like things like learning how to say yes and no, and boundaries, whatever industry or whatever thing that you involve yourself with, and there's no rule. I mean, no one's saying
Exactly.
that
It's not like
everyone.
it's good or bad or
That's
whatever.
right. Or anybody saying that everyone has to do webinars and be teaching. That's
Yeah.
absolutely not, got nothing to do with that.
That's
It's
real bullshit. Sorry.
yeah, it's following your own joy and where that takes you. And then it's also your role to that you transform whatever industry that you're in. And
Yeah.
because you are that so bold and creative, actually any work or jobs, or because some people are actually
Some people
even
are resistant to jobs, and I was
or
going to talk
afraid,
about that.
yeah,
Please go
ashamed,
ahead.
yeah, even
Yeah.
ashamed to say, well, I need a job, or I want a job, or whatever. But I find that you kind of really go in and create, because you are, and you don't depend anymore, you're sovereign, and you don't follow fear anymore. Within any place you can then create conditions that actually fulfill who you are, meaning
Yeah.
that you get better conditions, meaning that you get better money, and also meaning that you transform the whole place and conditions for everyone else involved. And that may not happen in the first 2 weeks, or it may,
Yeah.
but you just keep bringing your soul to wherever that it is that your heart tells you to go, that you follow the joy. And you also organize things that, I find it that perhaps, doing something like full time is maybe too much, but
Yeah.
there's so
But
many ways that these days, like there's so many
it's
different.
so flexible,
That's
really.
right. Yeah. And the thing is, if you don't, you know that you are meant to, from your own soul's perspective. And so you then keep falling into this beating yourself down more and more and more. You
Yeah.
kind of fall into this kind of inertia, fearful, even though you've integrated and you've done the work, blah blah blah. But like you said, that definitely is that next step of coming out of your closet, really.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
in what way is it comfortable, I ask, to all of
yeah,
those of you who resist getting a
yeah,
job but don't have money to buy
yeah,
what you'd like, or need,
yeah,
even in
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah,
cases you're living in lack? In what way is that comfortable?
yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. I mean,
Or self-respect even, yeah,
exactly. Like, if you don't have enough to pay your bills and your basic needs, get out there, do something about it. It's no point just staying, hanging around and pretending, oh, I'm a master, I can't have a job. Bullshit. You're not a master, otherwise you'd be feeling wonderful, and you'd be feeling fulfilled, and you'd be kind to yourself, and you'd be loving yourself, and all of that. So, and also one important thing, let go of the prior belief system around having a job. That's the first thing. That's the first thing to let go of. And then allow the job to surprise you.
That's right. And people, and also really, because it is, because in the old days jobs were a nightmare. They were kind of slavery, but especially now,
and there are
COVID,
a lot out there.
And especially after COVID now, I mean, you can't even, for some things, you can't even say a job, even, like, don't call it a job.
Things have changed.
And find a way to create those kind of, because also I find that, if you go out and you lose so much of the fear, because you then realize that, okay, so I've gone through all of those times when I felt awkward, when I felt all of those things, but now I'm in this space again where I can connect with humanity. And it means that, yes, I keep those boundaries, and I keep practicing those boundaries, and I keep taking time for myself and all of those things. But at the same time, like you say, you are part of community. You have money to go to concerts and this. And the thing is,
exactly.
And it's not about asking, a lot of the people also, I find, not a lot, but some, they will say, well, I don't want a job, but they're okay then to keep borrowing from someone who does go and get a job.
The other thing I was going to say.
A little bit, that's a little bit, you're really deluding yourself, if we're honest.
You're saying, oh, but that person is in my reality, so they're serving me. Fuck. Who do you think you are?
Exactly. It's a little bit, it's very weird. And I know that, there are, eventually you do come to be self-employed, but you come to be self-employed because you've experienced so many different things,
exactly.
Like if you're just someone who has stayed at home in a garage and just play computer games and nothing, I mean, how can you then build your own business? Because building your own business, you
have to have the experiences.
Absolutely. You have to know how to deal with accounting, with taxes, with everything,
with people,
with investing. You actually, you become better. You become much better because you're a master. But still, it doesn't just pop. I mean, because the thing is,
it's sort of like, you have to be the apprentice first for yourself. So you go out and you go on a mentorship, a tutorship, whatever you want to call it, in a job here, there. You learn the ropes. And then you start realizing how you can do it for you, if it's supposed to be like that, because you can stay in a job and be fully realized with your life, fully content.
Or you can take a couple of years off, or to do the integrations, and
but you need to have the money.
That's right.
To be safe.
That's right.
Safe in terms of not have this terror in your mind every day of how I'm going to pay the rent, how am I going to pay this, that makes too much noise.
And so there's definitely I would say, don't be afraid to go out. And if anybody is saying to you, you should be ashamed to have a job as a master, look at their life. Is their life giving them the authority to say this? And if what you see in their life says, crap, I don't want that, you don't need to listen to them, and you don't own anybody any explanation. You can go and do whatever you need, whatever your inner voice says. And then, because the thing is with these kind of things, I mean, even if you're in 6 months' time, you say, no, I've done that, you can always leave.
Right. It's not permanent.
Nothing is. And
exactly.
So
it's not that big deal. It's not a big deal.
And be adventurous.
And it is. On the other hand, it's essential that,
that's right,
that you get moving.
And be bold. Don't give, because this is again another peer pressure and almost cultish behavior, because it's like this peer pressure. Oh, you're not a master if you go and do this. Who has the authority to say that to you if you're a sovereign independent being? Nobody.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing, you know. So just say fuck it.
Yeah,
You know?
totally. I mean, you
Do
know,
what needs to be done. I mean, because if you have created that situation that in which you find yourself, it means that you need to find a way to transform this. And maybe in 6 months or few months time, you'll say, no, this actually, having, for example, having a job is not really bad. I've at least gone out of that inertia. I've at
right.
least
You've
realized,
set
wow,
energy in motion.
and then you can do, you know, that it becomes your scope of experience and your scope of potentials just exponentially comes much bigger when you go out, when you go out after, of course, that you've, like we're talking about those people that have been doing this work. And you know, because it really isn't about sitting at home on a couch.
No.
But there is also the times
There's
when,
time and space for that.
that's right, when perhaps there is a couple of months where, all right, it's time to sleep a lot, or to, you know, there comes those times. And again, it's up to you to say yes or no, and to not get into the peer pressure. If other people, whatever other people, doesn't matter. You have to say yes and no when it's right for you. So yeah, it's not an easy topic to talk about.
It's not, but it's so essential.
Mm.
And for, you know, we're coming into this new year of 2023 where the whole world is in recession economically. You don't need to be living that. It doesn't need to be your story. But for that, of course, you have to create economic abundance and stability for yourself. And that doesn't mean sitting around doing nothing if you feel you don't have what you need to sustain your needs. That's what I mean. I had a session yesterday, and the person I was having a session with shared something so beautiful, which is, so he had known tranquility, but now he realizes that was not peace. That which is peace is something completely different. And so he used to have panic attacks and had real resistance going out, and because he's very sensitive and felt people's thoughts and feelings and all of that. And now when he goes out, he feels such a joy because he feels that peace inside. That peace is not the same as what people usually call tranquility. Tranquility, you're in a quiet place, there's no noise, whatever, but inside there can be a war going on. That is not peace. Now, the peace is when you are in total open acceptance of all that you are, really receiving every cue, really facing everything that comes up. And then you walk out into the street and all of a sudden it seems like everything's changed, like everything's different, but it's you that has changed. And you can go to that job, which in this case is also the case of this person. So he can go now to his job in a city center, in the capital, and feel as peaceful as he feels if he's working from home. And his colleagues don't bother him, and his boss doesn't bother him, and it doesn't bother him to go in public transport or anything. Why? Because the war inside is no longer going on. That's the big difference. And so if, for instance, there is this insufficiency, because basically it's insufficiency when you feel you don't have enough for whatever it is, you name it, can be material or anything else, emotional. This insufficiency is part of the battle inside. Once the battle ends, once you're no longer battling against, it doesn't mean you have to have integrated everything, no, but you're open to whatever comes up, and you're not turning your back anymore, so you're not at war, that changes everything, because then you're not in insufficiency. What's the insufficiency? It's those parts of you that are disconnected from the whole. And if they're disconnected, of course they don't have enough, because they are much more than that. They're not just that little bit. They know, there's the intrinsic knowingness in each one of our parts that they belong together with the wholeness. And so the feeling of insufficiency is just a nagging at the back, reminding you there's work to be done. But the work is not only done lying on the couch or bed, breathing. It's also done going out into life and participating in it and being a part of it and creating and feeling the enthusiasm and feeling the shifts going on in motion, in actual reality itself. Then you don't feel insufficiency. Then you feel provided for.
And also stress, you know, you get stress and you get added panic attacks, because like it's all part of that kind of mindset, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. The insufficient mindset creates worry, stress, panic, terror, all of those things. Why? Because there's all of these parts screaming and shouting in closed rooms. Because they can't come close to you, because each time they do, you just run away into the forest.
On the couch, no,
on the couch, yes, and pretend, oh no, that's not me, oh, that can't be true.
But we all, and of course we have humor with all of this. We humor, and how we thought, and all the error.
We're not making fun of anyone, because we've also done these things at certain points.
We're laughing at ourselves.
We've been this person we're talking about.
Absolutely, that's why we can talk about.
Totally. Oh my God, I remember how hilarious it used to be when I had 250,000 euros in debt, and I was
that's like $500,000 Australian.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Constantly playing with credit cards. I needed to go to the bank every day.
You're like a juggler. Were you like
yes, that's exactly how I felt. And so I looked at all the blooming accounts and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this? And my soul all the time smiling. And Saint Germain was with me a lot during that period. And he'd just laugh and say, if only you knew, it's all already here in your reality. And my essence would come and say, you know, just start looking at those numbers as inversed. So you've got them in the red. Soon enough, they'll be the other way around. It's fine. And I would feel a little bit more peaceful for a few moments. And then
until you had to run to the bank again.
Yeah. And they were calling me all the time, you know, because the dates were passing for the loans and all of that stuff. But one thing is certain, I never failed a loan, like a month. I never failed a month. I don't know how I did it. It was just crazy. Anyway, but that gave me such a resilience with money and with knowing how magically it can be managed and how a little bit can multiply into a lot. It's just incredible. I mean, it gave me a wonderful background, though I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, and I wouldn't repeat it for sure. Anyhow, after integrating it, I got the juice of it, and the juice is a knowingness around managing money that I've always had a sensitivity for money, but I've gained much more wisdom around that. It's incredible. So, you know, I mean, if I could do it, you know, anyone can do it. It's not that I had any special whatever, I inherited a fortune or whatever to turn it around. No, I have, yes, in my reality, the people that I needed to help me and support me to get through this just were there and have been there. And I myself, of course, had to make the choices. Yeah, I had to make the choices. And I had to, like, for instance, I didn't leave my job until 2020. I had it used to be full-time, but it turned into part-time for the last 2-3 years before I left it, because it wasn't sane. It wasn't safe in terms of, it would create all sorts of worries that I didn't need. So why? What for? Then when I did leave it, I was so ready for it that instantly my business took off more than it was already before. And there was absolutely no issue at all. But, you know, we don't need to rush into anything and just pretend. Like, for me, it was interesting in the case you were saying, because I fell into wholeness, or so everything came together in 2013. So in 2013, I already had that, right? And it's not like instantly I clicked my fingers, and after all of this coming together within me, where there was complete and absolute peace and love and all of that, all of a sudden I look at my bank account and there's no more debt. Of course not. Of course not. It took me until 2019 to eliminate the whole of it. And there were many who judged that, you know, people who were watching, because that once you reach that point of wholeness, then there's those who are watching to see, you know,
that you're gonna fall or
that's
something.
Real. Yeah, let's see if she's for real. And let's see if she doesn't fall over. And like almost crossing your fingers, they're crossing their fingers to see you fail in a way. And you're just dancing through it, you know, gracefully, of course, not worrying, not caring one little bit about what they think, these people, but you feel it on the background. It's like there and there. Once it happens, the funny thing is those people keep on seeing what they were seeing before, because they're in that sphere of consciousness of being more interested in what anyone else is doing than in creating their own life. And so then at some point you're already like 300 miles ahead, and they're still seeing you where you were before. And that's just fine, because when you're gracefully really living your reality, you couldn't care shit about what whoever
and you simply
thinks.
You
don't care. It doesn't make a difference. And exactly.
You don't have time.
You're so involved
with your own creativity that,
yes.
for example, like even things like gossip and stuff, I mean, there is
interest.
Yeah, there is talking about others. Let's say, you know, like
that's
say
different.
two friends come and you say, oh, and what's that other friend doing? You catch up with things. That's different than like you said, these gossip and watching others. Like you don't have time to watch others. Like
no,
you can have time. Like I sort of look at other people's maybe memes and whatever things they're saying, because I get inspired by them. But but what people are doing, I'm thinking, well, because we already have so much to do, like you know, because like let's say whatever you're running, you have to keep learning the new things and watch this video on this, how to do that, how to do lighting, how to this new, you know, like it really
whatever
you lose an interest, like because it doesn't anymore affect because like what we mentioned before, it's always in relationship, you with you, whatever you're doing is you with you. So I'm looking at, okay, so if I remember a couple of years ago I was feeling like this, but now in relationship to who I was, I feel like that, or whatever, you know. So it's
exactly
that, rather than, because we can't even know where others really are. That's
because they're in their own creation.
in
And
their
that's
own
fantastic.
creation.
And
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's none of our business.
And then you can really be happy for other people,
Yes,
that they're doing well,
totally
because
happy.
then you think, wow, if, like you said, if they can do it, I can also do it,
Yeah,
like I can let
yeah.
go of
You
whatever
can celebrate it.
was stopping me from whatever, because it doesn't really take away anything from you. Because when you're a sovereign, because before, when we
It
were doing,
adds, it
stealing the
enhances.
energy, and we were stealing the energy from each other, like whatever, all of that kind of stuff, it mattered, but now, because
Yeah.
you get all these inner, from inside of yourself, then you don't depend on what are people doing well or not well. You don't depend on their energy at all. And so, and that's good, because in a way, because like you said, their opinion of things no longer matters. Because I find that when I go out with people, how I create my relationship with anyone, that perhaps other people may have trouble with a certain person, but I, for example, don't have trouble, and I actually can have really good, I'm thinking, I can have good stuff with that person, because you are individualized, and how you interact with another person, how it's all between you and that other person. It doesn't, the other, the crowds don't affect it, because it's sovereign person to sovereign person that you're dealing with. So there's so many this kind of benefits. And also, like what you were saying, about all of these experiences that we've had. I remember even before this last big awakening, when, because I kind of went out into the world, and the dependent on my own self and my own work and all of that kind of thing. And because I had a really messed up ideas about abundance, and I was coming from, these big lacks of money and resources and all of that. So I had to change that. But what really always pissed me off or made me laugh or whatever was how absolute I was doing things. So for example, let's say, absolutely perfectly. So for example, let's say
I know what you mean.
I would pay all the bills and whatever. But that was one of those things that I did. Like I always paid, all the bills and stuff. And what, it doesn't matter how much it was, all of the bills that came, they were all different, and maybe monthly they were different, but I used all the exact money that I had for that month,
So nothing else.
That's right. I would work on public holiday, and I'll have some extra money because they pay extra on public holiday, and then some bill would be exactly that amount more. So by the end of it,
that was so frustrating.
To the 50 cents, I'm like, bloody hell, what's that extra money? So
it never seemed to be there.
Exactly,
it was so frustrating.
And then another thing that I used to do, because and this was my way of creating, because we create things, we are completely abundant, but we create them based on our belief system. So for example, I used to believe that it is not okay to spend money, to be frivolous with money and have fun and adventures with things, right? Because, you have to first invest in your house. And it's true, you have to, but where I come from, there was never for anything extra. So there was no play. It was just for job, for house, for this, for house, for
responsibilities.
For the responsibilities. That's right. And so then when I came here into, especially this town, my hometown, that I call my hometown now. So it's an adventure place, tourist place. So I got a job in tourism, and then I did all of my adventures because we got all my free adventure stuff through my job. So that was okay. So I didn't earn that much, but I got all the free adventures. So I could go to the reef, I could go diving, all was free at that time because it was crazy, crazy time. So that was okay because I didn't have to pay for it. But but just as easily I could have, if I had a different kind of belief system, I would just create a job that paid me a lot and I could easily just pay for all these things. See? So we have to kind of really look at how we create a belief system as to how we're creating, things that we're creating. Because after I paid the bill every week or every month, it was like to the 50 cents, exactly, and nothing left over for the fun thing. So it was just funny how yeah, so
It's
but
so strange, even like when we you come to a point where you can't even relate to how you used to do it, because you don't even know how the hell did I do that, you know. It just really becomes humor and
humor, that's it.
beautiful,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
compassion, not with judgment and all. You just say, wow,
you can just
it's
laugh.
amazing how I did that way,
Yeah,
you know. It's like,
yeah.
how the hell, well, anyway, you
But
just,
you awaken
okay,
to, you awake, it helps to awaken to yourself as to what a
yeah,
precise, incredible, scientific, really mathematician creator that you are,
yeah,
really, even if
yeah,
you're not into mathematics, but to be so precise
right.
with all these kind of, you know, squares and
Intricacies of
yeah,
belief systems.
and you know, because there's also so many people involved with this, you know, someone has to
Yes,
stamp the bill and send it,
all
and
of
then
them.
you know, like like you have to really marvel at the
At
mastery,
the perfection
perfection
of it,
of
right?
creation, of our creation,
Yeah,
even when the human self is unawakened and unconscious.
yes.
It's not that a person awakens and becomes conscious
And becomes a creator.
of
Just
reality.
become a conscious creator.
That's
That's the
right.
only
Yeah,
difference.
that's right. Yeah. Or, and you don't battle against your greater self, like greater as in
Yeah.
soul self. And
Yes,
that's that
exactly.
war, you know, that's that
You
war
don't
that,
try and have your own will as a human. No, no, no,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
want it
yeah.
this way. And you
That's
feel from
right. Yeah.
soul, but please, let's go
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no. Yeah, you don't do that anymore.
Yeah, you cooperate rather than battle yourself.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
and all of the things and all of the things already out there, you know, you've always been,
Yeah.
as a solar creator, all of these abilities and skills. It's just that this awareness just keeps making the scope of your awareness bigger. Like it's like this
And
light
even
just
with
becomes
time,
bigger. Yeah.
for instance, I would say like 2022 was like 12 years instead of 12 months, because you're living life so fully. Each day is huge. It's
Mm,
super complete, and it
mm,
contains so much.
mm,
Um, Even if it's a day that you're staying home and doing
mm.
not like pretty much nothing, it's the same thing as
Mm,
if it's a day that you're gonna be doing a lot of stuff
mm,
outside or whatever. It doesn't really matter, but you feel the days are so full
mm,
because you're not in lack. And so everything
mm.
is fulfilling, everything is full and complete and whole. So then, yeah, everything,
And
time is energy, it just
yeah,
becomes abundant.
and everything is sacred, you know, like it's not that,
Yes.
so it's not that like, oh, this part is not spiritual, that part is not spiritual. Whatever you're doing in your
Yeah.
life, in your day,
Everything is spiritual
mundane,
in
yeah,
that sense.
it's all sacred and it's all spiritual and it's
Yeah.
all meaningful, and it all involves incredible mathematics, sacred geometry, you know,
Yeah.
sacred mathematics,
Fortunately, we don't need
science.
to know all of
No,
it.
no, unless one is interested, but you know,
Yeah.
like it is complex, and at the same time it is simplicity, both at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess
Well,
we've come to the we've
I
come to the
guess
end.
so, huh?
Yes. So we would just like to now, you know, wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a happy New Year. So next January is starting quite early, isn't it? It's like the first week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there will be a little bit different dates next year, but we're all
Mhm.
just expanding into, you know, having loads on.
Yeah, we're making it easier for ourselves and for everyone else. So all of the dates will be out there. And
Yeah,
so you know in advance when the themes
yeah,
will only come up month by month, but the dates will
yeah,
all be out
yeah.
there. And so if you really like our show, our sharing, and want to be present, you'll know
That's
beforehand.
right.
You can make time for
Plan,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
and that's it.
subscribe, and if you do subscribe, like if you sign up with Zoom, a lot of people don't know that if you sign up on either Tanya's or my website, that you know, you get a reminder a week before and a day before as well that the show is on. So we will list all of those dates. Just give us a little bit of time, but we'll list all of those dates, and then you can sign up and you get a reminder. You still doesn't mean you have to attend, but
right, of course, you just don't forget. And
right,
thank you for your donations that we
Yes.
receive with loads of love, and we're openly receptive to whatever you would like to share with us. It, as I've said before, feels like eating chocolate cake or receiving bunches of flowers.
Yeah, and it really helps us because it does involve, you know,
there are some costs involved.
There are costs
here.
involved and all of these kind of things. So, you know, please, if you do feel to donate, please do. And we spread it around. You know, this work affects so many people, and you know, we kind of. It's like, you know, when it's flowing, you can share, and then when you also need, you can then receive. So we're all go through that time when we're learning all these bits and pieces and stuff like that. So, but we wish everyone a Merry Christmas, whether you're on your own
whatever,
or with a family.
Like whatever belief you have, because you might be celebrating something else.
That's right.
Whatever you're celebrating.
Yeah, and a Happy New Year too. And it's gonna be, gosh, you know, it's gonna be a wonderful next year. Wow. It just keeps getting more and more interesting, you know. And some people are saying, don't tiptoe around it. Don't mention 2023, so we don't wake it up. You know, it's like, but we are waking.
It's already there. It's already there. No way not to wake it up.
That's right. We're fearless and we're bold.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have come at this time.
That's it. Exactly. All right. So thank you to each and everyone, and all the best, and namaste.
Thank you.